Good evening. Welcome to the Fremont for Everyone Candidate Forum for Fremont City Council District 3, which really is the downtown district and includes City Hall and is bounded by Thornton Avenue and Stevenson and Paseo Padre and Sundale and Fremont Boulevard and 880, because 880 is the border between Fremont and Newark. So that's our new District 3. And tonight we're really honored to have the three candidates that are vying for election or re-election to District 3. And I'm gonna, on my gallery here, left to right, is Arif Mohamed and Jenny Kassan and Kathy Kimberlin. So we're gonna launch into questions. Good evening. We're gonna launch into some questions in a few minutes, but I wanted to brag about Fremont for Everyone. Fremont for Everyone advocates for inclusive, affordable housing for our residents and ensures Fremont is welcoming of new neighbors while remaining a wonderful community for living closer to work, raising a family, and aging in place, a home for everyone. And if you look at our wonderful website, www.fremontforeveryone, you can see what all the great things that we do. We came about back in 2018 when we were the Friends of the Housing Navigation Center, providing backup and support for the council as they made the difficult decision to have the first housing navigation center in Fremont. We've been advocating for safe parking, advocating on the recent housing element for the update to the state. We're going to be talking about the housing element tonight. And since August of 2021, we formalized our organization. We have bylaws. We've had elections. We just recently had an election. I still haven't heard the results, but I assume I'm still on the leadership team. But we got a great team here this evening with Vanita, Verma, Lisa Dans. Hey, Cher's come out of retirement, kind of like Tom Brady, to be our timer tonight. And Catherine Ruby is going to be helping with screening questions. And so what we do is we advocate for the unhoused, for general housing policy, and locally, statewide, public housing and housing issues. We've had forums with the BODE and other nonprofit organizations, and we get involved. There's a wonderful hygiene unit, and people have volunteered their time or volunteered their time at the safe parking sites around the city. So now I'd like to introduce our candidates. Well, that's why you're here this evening. So I'm going to go and I'm going to try to randomize. There's only three of you. It shouldn't be too tough. And I'm going to try to be very random in who gets to speak first, second, and third. But each candidate will be given 90 seconds to speak, and they will be directed all questions in turn. And when we have an audience participation later, the questions that we are asking are directed to all three equally. It's not intended to highlight one candidate over another. And at this time, I'd like to have your introductory statements. Why are you running? Tell us a little bit about yourself. And I'm going to start with Arif Mohamed. Mr. Mohamed, could you start off introducing yourself?
Thank you, David. Thank you, everyone. I say good evening to everyone. So my name is Arif Mohamed. I want to be your next city council member for District 3. By profession, I am a software engineer and small business entrepreneur. I am willing to take risks and try unconventional approaches.
I am the founder of. I'm going to do something I don't want to do the rest of the evening. I'm going to interrupt you, not to take any time away from you, but I don't think we have the 90 seconds going on, so that we have other people here that want to speak tonight. So I'm going to at about 1:20, and I think that's about now. Continue. I apologize for interrupting. There you go.
I am the founder of a nonprofit that has served 50,000 hot meals to the homeless population in the Tri-City area. During the lockdown, nobody was, serving the homeless and the senior citizens, who are staying in the apartments and single-family homes with no access to food. I took the initiative to found the nonprofit organization without any funding from city, state, or any politicians or any taxpayer funds. We are able to serve these meals to this community, by going to their locations like Quarry Lake, under the bridges, apartments, like as senior citizen homes. We generated over $80,000 in revenue to our local restaurants and grocery stores from the common people like you and me. Not a single penny from the city. During that time, where are these politicians? At that moment, I realized the importance of public service and started participating in the local community services. We'll take the same results-oriented approach to the city council. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now next, Jenny Kassan.
Hello, and I do want to just say thank you so much to Fremont for Everyone. What you did about the Housing Navigation Center was absolutely amazing and essential. So I'll just give some quick background about me. I graduated from Yale Law School in 1995 and then moved back to the Bay Area, where I went to get a master's degree in city planning at UC Berkeley. And I also went to work at a nonprofit where I worked on the Fruitvale BART Transit Village and also worked on neighborhood commercial district revitalization for 11 years. I then left the nonprofit and went into private practice as an attorney for small business. And I now run a law firm out of my home. I'm a small business owner working from home with employees all over the country. And I also run a nationwide nonprofit called Community Ventures, also out of my home. When I ran for city council 4 years ago, I made a pledge not to take any money from real estate developers or any other real estate interests or corporate interests, because I've seen too many times our city council making decisions on real estate projects where the people voting on the project had financial or other kinds of relationships with developers. And I think that's an absolutely unacceptable conflict of interest that makes it really impossible for us as a city to have an arm's length relationship with developers and hold them accountable to make sure that what they're doing is best for our city. Since being elected, I've worked very hard on the housing and homelessness issue. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kathy Kimberlin.
Good evening, Kathy Kimberlin here. Thank you, Fremont for Everyone. It's good to see the few people I see tonight. I'm running for City Council District 3 as well, and want to tell you a little bit about myself. I think one of the reasons I'm running is because the people of District 3 deserve representation from a leader with a track record of actively showing up to build community strength, public safety, and unity. I've called Fremont home for over 40 years, and I understand the challenges that we face. My experience with organizations for over 25 years in the community lends to my qualifications to serve you. So in the areas of small business and nonprofits, I've been a connector of resources as the president of the Centerville Business and Community Association. I've worked as a member of the COVID recovery task forces for the Fremont Chamber, Economic Development, and Fremont Unified. I've championed resources for Tri-City nonprofits as co-founder of the Tri-City Nonprofit Coalition and president of the Fremont Education Foundation. I've worked with growth, traffic, and safety, addressing blight in Centerville, bringing people together. Once again, as president of the Centerville Business and Community Association, member of the Fremont Chamber Commerce Government Affairs. I've worked with programs to help those in need of assistance as a coordinator of local efforts in support of resettlement programs, supporting services for seniors to age well, and coordinated efforts to help our unhoused with food, shelter, and wraparound services. And my time's running out. Thank you.
Thank you. Our first question this evening, the Alameda County eviction ban moratorium that's been in effect in various iterations really since the onset of COVID in March. And right now it's still currently in effect, and it bans eviction of tenants for non-payment of rent. So my question is going to be first to Jenny is, should the eviction ban moratorium remain in place? And if you think it should have been ended, how long ago do you think it should have been ended? So talk about what the moratorium is about and what your position is on the moratorium.
Yes, I think we do still need to keep the moratorium in place because a lot of people are still suffering from the effects of COVID. I was the only council member to vote against tying our eviction moratorium to the county's eviction moratorium, because I do feel that we need to make a decision as a city and not have our decisions dictated by what the county decides as long as the county moratorium is in place, I trust the county to do what's best given our situation with COVID. But I also feel that we may need to keep it in place longer. So I was the only council member to vote to make sure that we have control over that. Unfortunately, that did not get a majority, but yes, I think it is still needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathy Kimberlin.
Okay, this is quite a topic to juggle. If you watch any of the Alameda County supervisors meetings, there have been so many meetings where oral communications is landlord after landlord after landlord after landlord after landlord who has been in a position where they've been taken advantage of. Yes, we've had renters who've needed help. Yes, we've had renters who have lost their jobs and been affected by COVID. But we also have another type of renter who has not worked with the landlords. And this has really hurt, so there are both sides. You have the people in need, but you also have another pocket of people, landlords, who have been taken advantage of. And they're suffering badly. They're begging the county supervisors to please make the eviction moratorium go away. As a matter of fact, Monday night, I listened to the town hall that Supervisor David Halbert had, and it was to have the landlords come in and learn more from them. What's really going on? Let's dig down a little deeper. And so we'll see how this goes, but it's really dicey right now. Some people are suffering on both sides. Thank you.
Arif Mohamed.
So this one is close to, I associate this with the homelessness. We should have the eviction ban moratorium should remain in place, because many working families, they need help because of the COVID thing. I'm right now I'm dealing with one family, and they live in a car, and the people who work, because of some mistakes the husband did, the whole family was evicted from one of the cities, and they are in Fremont. So it's very important for us, for the kids, the safety of the kids, sending them to the school and making sure that, they have a shelter, and we don't put strain on the city resources already struggling with so many cases there. So I will be supporting this. And there was a huge, because of this lockdowns, right? There was a huge impact on the families, working families, not the people who is in IT or big things or the big high-paying jobs. So it's very important for us keep this the median income of people housed, so that their kids can go to school and get the education what is needed. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll just give a brief interlude before my next question. I've been reminded to remind the audience to submit your questions via chat, and we have our people looking at them, and we'll get them to the candidates this evening, time permitting. Next question I'd like to ask about SB 9. SB 9 was a state law that passed recently that takes away some local control over the division of lots, but the way so that you can have more affordable housing by design, market rate housing. And it's ministerial, which means it's a matter of right. It doesn't go through a public hearing process if certain criteria are met. But the law as enacted did not apply to areas that had what are called CC&Rs, or private deed restrictions. So in District 3, right in the heart of it, you've got Glenmore with its CC&Rs, and it theoretically can prevent lot splits because of its own CC&Rs. So my question to the candidates is whether you support SB 9 being expanded so that places like Glenmore can have lot splits as well. And so I'm going to ask that question for Ms. Kimberlin first.
Love that question. Yes, living in Glenmore, I was a little bit leery. I really read up and studied on SB 9 to see what that was really going to do to a neighborhood here. I talked with the Homeowners Association because it does not address the CC&Rs. It doesn't work with the CC&Rs. It doesn't talk to the CC&Rs. I would love to see further collaboration to make this work better for a neighborhood, so that you could do this in neighborhoods, but you can also preserve. I mean, this is a historic neighborhood. It's been here since the mid-50s. And so I would love to have more conversation about that and see a better agreement come up that will work for the people who are able and willing and want to do, possibly four units on one lot, but then also people who want to preserve their single family home and have that right to do that. And in affecting a whole neighborhood, how it affects a whole neighborhood, I think that more discussion, more collaboration, and a better agreement would be wonderful.
Mr. Mohamed, Arif.
I think SB 9 is a very good step towards making more houses available in the market. I think these historic districts like Glenmore will have some CC&Rs will play some role. But if you look at the cities like San Jose, considering proposals beyond SB 9, and to end that single family zoning because of the historical data, historic districts. So it's very important for us to allow to increase the affordable housing available in the market. We have to focus on this one. And the other thing I wanted to have on this one is we should strike a balance between the policy objectives of the SB 9 and understanding behind covenants, conditions, and restrictions like CC&Rs.
And before I go to Ms. Kassan, I just want to indicate I misspoke. Please post your chat questions in the Q&A, not in the chat. That's been disabled. So go to Q&A on your screen and ask away. Now, Ms. Kassan, SB 9 and places like Glenmore, what's your position?
Yeah, well, I think that the idea of having more units in single family neighborhoods makes sense. You know, allowing ADUs by right, I think was the right thing to do. I think SB 9 is good in many ways, but my biggest concern is that it just doesn't really necessarily address the affordable housing crisis, because a lot of the housing that would be built under these additional units under SB 9 honestly would not be affordable. I personally believe, based on what I've read and what I've studied, that building more market rate housing, even if it's smaller and potentially quote unquote affordable by design, we're still talking about relatively expensive housing. I do not believe that building more expensive housing will somehow result in more affordable housing. Some people oversimplify it and say, oh, it's just supply and demand. If we just build more market rate housing, it'll somehow trickle down and create more affordable housing. But I honestly don't think there is good evidence for that. It's kind of like saying, if we just produce a lot more caviar, then somehow more and more people will be able to afford to buy ramen and burgers at McDonald's. They're totally different market segments. And I just don't believe that there's good evidence that building more market rate housing results in more affordable housing. So I do think there's some really good things about SB 9, but it won't solve the problem.
Thank you very much. Next question, I'm going to ask about another area that there's a difference of views on this. There is something called in lieu fees, in which developers are able to pay into a housing trust fund for affordable housing production. And they've been allowed to do that under our city really for the last decade or more. Prior to that, developers didn't have that option. They had to build affordable housing on site. And there's now, again, a review of that and saying, is that the way to meet our affordable housing demand? So I'm going to ask Arif first in this question. Do you believe that we should use more on-site construction to deal with our affordable housing crisis, or do you support the current emphasis on allowing developers to pay in lieu fees instead of on-site construction?
So I am open to on-site construction. It's a great it's a great option. And I think, giving them, we need to incentivize the developers to build more affordable housing, but the way they are incentivizing is not acceptable. The way they are doing it is not generating any more affordable housing. It is just like, Band-Aid. So developers just to use that as an excuse, to get into, to sell those same houses, by paying the in lieu fees to the city. And the city, with that money, city is not able to provide any affordable housing to the people who are really in need. 75% of $1.2 million is not affordable for majority of the people. So I am open for on-site, open to this on-site construction, but definitely we need to revamp the way that we are handling this situation.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Kassan.
Yeah, so updating our affordable housing ordinance that sets in lieu fees is a very onerous process, because we hire consultants to look at so not everyone realizes this, but every time a market rate unit is built, it actually increases the demand for affordable housing. So we get more and more in the hole. So we do a study to see every time a new market rate unit is built, how much affordable housing needs to be built to accommodate that. And then there's also a study to say, what is the maximum feasible fee that a developer could pay on to cover those impacts? And so when we talked about the affordable housing ordinance, I advocated strongly that we go with the maximum number that the consultants and the economists found would be feasible, which is still not enough. It still puts us behind, but at least it gets us closer. Unfortunately, the council voted to go for a lower number. Now, I know that having affordable units on site has a lot of benefits, but honestly, I like in lieu fees because I think that that is a more efficient way to produce more affordable housing. Nonprofit affordable housing developers are much more efficient at building affordable housing than for-profit developers putting a few units in their building. So I actually like in lieu fees. We did change things to make it a little bit more of a clear, not necessarily always going to in lieu fees as the choice, but I think we're doing decently on that now with the new ordinance.
Ms. Kimberlin.
Okay, we need market rate housing to fund the affordable housing. So we need those in lieu fees from the market rate housing. If we're not building market rate housing, we're not collecting those in lieu fees. So then once we do collect those in lieu fees, most developers don't prefer to do the housing on site. And here's a good reason why not to do the housing on site. If you have one of our professionals like Bode, Eden Housing, Mid-Penn, if you have them do it, once again, they are the professional and they're going to be able to build a complex that may have services to support the community that's going to live there, low income, very low income folks who oftentimes need services to help support success in them staying housed. And then also you can put it in an area where they have services nearby that they can walk to or take a bus to, that they can get to easily. So I think there's a lot of reasons to have the professionals take it with the in lieu fees and build vibrant, just like we have down in South Fremont, Canyon Flats, and they have services to engage the community and then really help build the success of these folks who are now housed or are able to be housed for a while. So.
Thank you. One of the big issues for Fremont for Everyone has been supporting the Safe Parking Initiative, which has been proposed as a 3-phase project. The first phase, which has been implemented by council, is to partner with nonprofit organizations and religious institutions to have some housing for our safe parking community overnight in a safe place with some supportive services. Phase 2 was the idea of going out to the community and going to where the RVs are on Stewart and Christie and around town and providing supportive services, kind of like an HNC on wheels is my metaphor for it. Phase 3 would be the most aggressive approach, which would be to have a city leased site and on-site parking with amenities. And when I was on council, we talked about it in 2017. It's now 2022. So I'm really curious as to whether we can go whether you are happy with just staying at phase 1, is that enough? And if you want to go to phase 2 or phase 3, how do you make that happen? So I'm going to go with Ms. Kassan first with this question.
Yeah, so I am so proud of the staff we have in the city of Fremont that works on homelessness. They are really like nationwide models of being so innovative and knowledgeable about what really works. And so when they came to us and proposed the 3-prong approach, I was really excited to support it. Unfortunately, the rest of the council said, no, we only want to support the first prong. I'm really happy that we have moved forward with the first prong and it's going very well. But it really disappoints me when we have such a big crisis on our hands that the council feels the need to be so cautious and not move forward with all of it. I mean, the problem is not going to go away. Whether we provide safe parking or not, people are parking on the streets, and we have a massive increase in the number of homeless people since our last count on our street. So the more we can do to provide services to help people actually get into permanent housing and get support, the more we're going to be able to solve the problem. So I'm not sure why all of the council members other than me chose to do that, but I would very much hope that we could change that position.
Ms. Kimberlin.
Well, I'm glad a step has been made, but I think it's time, just like tonight, we're having some courageous conversations about ideas and innovative ways to do things, different ways to look at things. I would love to look more at the 3-prong approach. I think we need to do more. We need to do so much more, but we don't have to do it alone as a city. I think we really need to work regionally. We need to work with the county. If we're all doing similar things, we don't have we're going to be solving the same problem we all have. So working together, having those courageous conversations of what can the city bear? You know, a lot of times people say, well, this, you know, if you don't know what the city can do, and I agree that we have a great city staff who do a lot of work, a lot of outreach, our Met team who goes out there and meets with the homeless and tries to problem solve before things get really very difficult. But, you know, like you said, we have so many of these homes, these motor homes sitting in places dilapidated, they can't even move. And how do we, that eventually is just going to clog up so many streets, especially in our industrial areas. So I would love to have more courageous conversations about 2 and 3 and keep it moving. We're not doing enough now. We have to do more.
Arif Mohamed.
Okay, I have a lot of stories to tell on this one. The, the safe parking initiative is a part of a well-intentioned effort to help our homeless people. You know, that's the intention of it. It's meant to be a permanent solution, but it can be a sturdy bridge between homeless and the housed. As my nonprofit Rahat Foundation, you know, we are doing, you know, a lot of things, and we are dealing with these people, you know, who lives in the cars. And we work with them very closely to, you know, to provide food. So one thing I will tell you though, right now I'm dealing with the 3 people who live in a car, and I asked them why you are not taking advantage of this program. They told me so many restrictions there, so I cannot live like that. And I'm not sure, you know, who did this 3-pronged research or whatever papers they submitted. I didn't get a chance to go through that one. But in IT world, we have a job. If you want to delay the project, create more phases of that project. That means it will never happen. You know, yeah, phase 1, you know, you can delay it as you want. You know, that's what is happening with this 3-pronged approach. I think, you know, there is no complete solution here. You know, we are just talking without, with somebody did some research at some place. We need to be more local. We need to understand exactly what's happening in Fremont and address that.
Thank you. I'm going to ask my last moderator question. I think now I might ask more, but we're getting a number of questions, and I think we're going to go the rapid round for a few seconds as we go through that. But this one captures a lot here. Historically, Fremont has not met its RHNA targets, regional housing needs allocation, that's set by a regional body under state law, for below market rate affordable housing. Since the term quote unquote affordable housing seems to mean something different to each person or entity asked, do you see this as shortfall as a problem, or is the concern overinflated? What specific policies would you support and advocate to meet this shortfall of affordable housing? And I'm sorry, I need to pick on somebody here. Ms. Kassan, why don't you go first?
All right. Let's see. I don't agree that everyone defines affordable housing differently. It is actually defined under state law. There's 3 different levels defined by area median income. So people might use different terms, but there is a definition for it. Yeah, it's pretty shocking when you look at our RHNA numbers. If market rate housing created affordable housing, boy, would we have a lot of affordable housing, because we oversupply market rate housing by around 350% of our RHNA numbers, but our affordable housing is way undersupplied. We only have about less than a third of what is the RHNA numbers asked us, said we should be producing. So I don't think the problem is at all over exaggerated. And it concerns me when we approve developments that just add to the market rate housing, take up space that should be taken up by excellent affordable housing developments near transit with yet more 3-story townhomes that cost, $1.3 million. It's just a waste of land and a missed opportunity to actually have a diversity of housing affordability in our city. What do I advocate we should do about it? I mean, we need to do everything we can to continue to get more funding for affordable housing. Honestly, it's an issue of cost. And if we reform Prop 13, that would go a really long way to add to the amount of money available to develop affordable housing. And I think we should do that. Thank you.
Arif Mohamed.
So affordable housing, it's like a Seinfeld comment for me. In Bay Area, if you live in Fremont, And we are expecting that, to sell houses at 500,000. That's not going to happen, but we need to create environment, or we need to create opportunities to support that kind of housing and the population need. There is a need for this kind of housing in Fremont residents. So we need to remove all the artificial barriers or whatever we have for housing construction. We have to judiciously cut through thicket of, government regulations that unnecessarily restrict the efficient construction of new housing. We need more shovels on the ground as soon as possible. We also need more dense mixed use housing near transit area. The approach has to have advantage of increasing the supply of housing while mitigating the concerns about aggravating traffic congestions and air pollution. Having visited several East Coast cities, I have been amazed by how easy it was to get around the city. So Bay Area neighborhoods are not designed like that one. We are more car centric. So this is where we have to look at our approach. We have to look at our policies. We need to come up with creative ideas of solving the issues. Right now, that's what we lack at the city council level. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Kimberlin.
So what we've got before us is the need to have 13,000 more units in the next 8 years. And there's only one way we're going to do it. We're going to have to do high density. And on top, included with high densities, we're going to have to look at different types of housing. Now, this may not be an affordable housing thing, but I went to the Mission Peak co-housing project the other day to see where they are on that, where they have community areas and they have private areas. And we really have to look at some different ways to do housing. We're also going to have to look at some of the new legislation that's just been signed in by the governor that puts limits and requirements and different restrictions on us that we need to look at. For instance, we don't have to have a required parking at transit-oriented districts. And so that's going to make it a little trickier, but it's part of changing the pace for people. When you look at a transit-oriented district like Centerville, transportation is a little tough because we're not by a BART station. So you've either got to take a train or a bus. But if you're near a BART station, you do have a little bit more, some more options there. So like I said, with all these things in mind, we need to look at different solutions, high density, and keep the conversation going. I'll sound like a broken record. Conversation to find the answers.
Now I'm going to ask yes or no questions. That doesn't mean yes and then but for 90 seconds. These are rapid fire questions. The first one, before I ask it, I think I got to define a term so the audience understands it. I know the candidates do. The word is ministerial approval, which means over the counter, no public hearing process, no planning commission, no city council. So when you hear the word ministerial approval, that's what it means. So my first question is a yes or no. Do you support streamlined ministerial approval for housing that meets all of Fremont's zoning and development standards? Yes or no? And I'm going to go with Arif first. Yes or no?
Yes.
Ms. Kassan.
That's the law. So I definitely support the law. Yes.
Whether it be the law also. Okay. Jenny, Kathy, please.
Yes.
Okay, good. Second one, rezoning high resource areas near transit to allow for more missing middle housing. Yes or no? And we'll go with Jenny first.
Yes.
Kathy?
Could you repeat it?
Sure. And I apologize if I use first names. If anybody offended, I'll use your last name, but it's easier for me to say it fast. Okay. The question is rezoning. Do you support rezoning high resource areas near transit to allow for more missing middle housing?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Arif?
Yes.
Okay. Pre-approved duplex designs to help more Fremont homeowners use SB 9. Kathy?
Yes.
Arif?
Yes.
Jenny?
Yes.
Good cause eviction and tenant opportunity to purchase act for mobile homes. That's actually two yeses in there. I got to say, do you support good cause eviction for mobile homes? Jenny?
I think so. I'm not sure I totally understand that issue, but I think so. I understand.
I think it means just cause eviction, that you have to have some reason before you can evict somebody.
Okay, I'd say yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Yeah, Arif?
I will go with yes because two ladies said. It must
Rent,
be good.
rent stabilization and eviction protections beyond those established as a baseline in state law. Kathy?
Repeat.
Rent stabilization and eviction protections beyond those established as a baseline in state law, going above and beyond AB 1482, in other words.
No.
Arif?
Maybe, if there is no yes, no on this
Yes or
one. I
no?
have to go
Maybe is
through
an answer. Jenny?
depending on the.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. Mixed income residential development on the Fremont BART parking lot. Yes or no, Arif?
No.
Jenny?
I built it in Fruitvale, love to build it in Fremont, yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Expand the transit-oriented district overlay radius beyond 1/2 mile. Arif?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Jenny?
I'm not sure. I need more details.
Inclusionary zoning, i.e. on-site affordable, yes or no? Arif?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Jenny?
Yes, within Luffy option.
Raising the minimum required affordable housing percentage. I think that what they mean there is the housing percentage for in lieu fees. So I'll finish the sentence. Kathy?
Yes.
Arif?
Yes.
And Jenny?
I voted for it, so yes.
I'm going to go now to audience questions. Bear with me. I'm going to ask another one that I think is really relevant to District 3. Get a little editorial discretion here because it involves Glenmore again. So people know where Glenmore is. This is live, so I've got to find the question. I thought it was a great question. And since I do, yes, here it is. There we go. Audience question: How will work to overcome neighborhood how will you work to overcome neighborhood opposition to median and lower income housing in this district, such as the Glenmore HOA's proposed fees and restrictions on ADUs, which discourage members from building more affordable housing? How will you work to overcome neighborhood opposition to that? I'm going to go with you, Kathy, first. And this is 90 seconds again for our timer.
Okay, so how do you go? Okay, that's a long question. I don't think there is. I think what our legislation is it allows ADUs. Well, we can't override that in Glenmore, from what I understand.
Well, I think this is a Glenmore resident, so I think he is suggesting that there are proposed fees, and I'm not a member of the HOA, but that there's some fees attached to the ADU development that they believe that they have the discretion to impose that overlay the state right to, in fact, discourage it. So I'm assuming that that's an accurate statement.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't think it's accurate, that's fair to say, but I'll allow you to go ahead. I interrupted you.
I would say that I'm not aware of that. I would say that Glenmore has quite a few ADUs and it works very nicely. I think there are things to consider with ADUs. You have to consider how many cars do you have that are going to be parking in the neighborhood? How are you impacting your neighborhood? That would be something I would be concerned about. But as far as I thought it was just pretty much cookie cutter. You can bring them in. I thought there were so many laws that really were over what our city can do. So maybe I don't understand that correctly. I think they should definitely be allowed. We should work together. We should work with the city and the CCNRs. And actually, that's been done before, where we have sat down. That's how we had a single story overlay come into Glenmore, is working with the city and working out solutions.
Very good. And I'm going to go to Arif next, please.
Okay, so more affordable housing is good for the entire community. Many of our community members have children who go to schools where there is a huge shortage of teachers. Basically, all frontline frontline workers. The same is, that's the reason I think having this ADUs will enable this affordable housing. So many parents, we have daughters who goes to 6th grade. She goes to the Walters Middle School, and we explored a lot of options before we moved into Sundale area. So it's very important. I built a ADU and I know the value of it and how it helps the people with different income levels. And I think I really support the ADU concept.
Thank you, Jenny.
Yeah, how to overcome neighborhood opposition to affordable housing developments is a really big question that affects our whole city. Having met with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of residents and gotten hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of emails and phone calls from residents about affordable housing and temporary affordable housing or a transitional housing. There are a lot of people who have a lot of fears around affordable housing, and the best thing we can do is try as hard as we can to really share the facts about what affordable housing is, the kinds of people who live in them, in it. I think there's just a lot of misconceptions about what it is and what it brings to your neighborhood. We have so many wonderful affordable housing developments in our community, and even homeless shelters where there's like no problems at all in the community. So we just need to keep working really hard to educate. But also, I hate to say it, we need to accept that there will be opposition. There just will be. We will never get to a point where everyone will be 100% in favor of affordable housing development. And we have to be bold as leaders and just say, okay, we know some people are very afraid of this and very opposed to this. We need to do it anyway. It's the right thing to do.
One of the audience questions is kind of an open-ended one, but it is an audience question. I'm just passing it through. Who do you define as a developer? And I'm going to go with Arif first.
Sorry, can you please repeat?
Very simple. Who do you define as a developer? I think that's the question. Who do you define as a developer?
So who do you define as a developer?
Yeah.
Anyone who helps to increase the housing, or anyone who increases the supply of housing in the city is a developer for me.
Okay.
So
you don't have to take all 90 seconds. Is that your answer? We'll go on.
Yeah, that's what is my answer.
Okay. And Jenny.
Yeah, that's a really good question because developers is a diverse population. I was a developer when I worked at the nonprofit in Oakland, developing mixed use transit-oriented development. There's many amazing affordable housing developers that are heroes. There's also small mom and pop people who own real estate and want to make and build some housing on it. However, if you look at what's happening in the real estate industry in the United States, more and more developers are giant multinational corporations traded on Wall Street that could not care less about Fremont. They have to, they're not evil people, but they are required to maximize shareholder return at all costs. So when we're dealing with developers like that, who, by the way, a lot of them are developing in Fremont, we need to not have any financial relationships with them. We need to not be friends with them and going to their events and things like that, having photo ops with them. It's not right. We need to keep that conflict of interest completely out of the process, because we're making decisions that affect our community for decades to come. And we need to do what's right for Fremont and not base our decisions on friendships or financial relationships.
Kathy.
People who build homes, developers are people who build homes, apartments, condos, tiny homes, you name it, high density housing. And they're people that it's of value to have conversations with. For instance, when Artist Walk was coming in and we started having conversations and thinking maybe it was a little too dense. Maybe this parking thing was not going to work for the neighborhood. Some of the residents were just really concerned about this coming in. And so we had community meetings. We talked to the developer. We talked with economic development. They would come to the meetings. And so what happened is we ended up getting a project that was more fitting for the neighborhood as far as what the residents and the community thought. So that conversation was good. It was prudent. Another conversation I had with affordable housing with Abode for the place Center Street, I think it is, that went in across from Washington High School. It helped educate the community what an affordable complex would look like, that there would be services, there would be help for the people in there. It wasn't going to be this scary thing. So I think developers are what I listed, and also people we need to have conversations with so that we can have projects that come in and fit Fremont and respect Fremont and the community.
Another audience question. Many who are unhoused struggle with food security as well. How would you and I think by you, they mean you as a council member in the city of Fremont, support local food security efforts. And Kathy, I'm just going to return it to you and ask you that question first.
Well, I have a very good relationship with Tri-City Volunteers, and they have a beautiful food pantry, and I really respect what they do in bringing food to people in the most respectful way. They get to choose their groceries. Daily Bowl also is a great community partner. I think that they're doing a very good job. We've got One Nation Dream Makers is another one who comes throughout the Bay Area. So the options are growing. They're becoming more vibrant. We've been talking, I've been having conversations with All In Eats through the Alameda County, bringing Dig Deep Farms to Ardenwood, bringing produce there, looking for a food hub in Fremont where we can have that food come. People can get the food, they can pick up the food and have entrepreneur business within that food hub. So I'm strong supporter of just building this up and continuing.
Arif.
So, as a founder of the nonprofit Rahat Foundation, which we served over 50,000 hot meals to the unsheltered community within Tri-City area, I'm very close to this issue. So the thing is that health, the food what we serve this community has to be safe, and it has to be certified by the health officials. Make sure the facility is certified, unless until you are making less than 4 meals at home, right? Otherwise, it has to be certified. It will have a huge impact on the unsheltered community if they get something that is not good, that's not safe for them to consume. So that's one of the top priorities. When we did when we served these meals, we partnered with 15 local restaurants. Each one of them gave us meals for $5. And that's how we raised the funds for them. And that's where, they maintain the quality of the food, not just the quantity. And, we always had good quality food, and we never had one complaint about, when we serve the food to this unsheltered community. And there are, I get calls from the police department. MET calls me saying that, hey, we need food at this location. Can you serve them? Can you provide them the food? And I get calls from the unsheltered community in the morning at 4 o'clock. I'm hungry, I need food. We find ways, we always goes with the quality food. I think it's very important. Thank you.
Jenny.
Yes, again, we have such an amazing staff in our human services department that has gotten very, very creative with this topic. I know there was a period where there was a lot of tying together the emergency crisis that was happening with small businesses to the emergency crisis of lack of food, and the city paid restaurants to provide meals to people who needed it. And so, yeah, I think the city is already doing a lot, and there also needs to be partnership with people in the community like Arif and others. There's so many ways that we can support our amazingly compassionate community of residents. I mean, I'm just constantly amazed at the things that our community residents do to step up to the plate to address the crises that are happening in our city of poverty and the widening gap between rich and poor that we're all facing everywhere in the country, and is hitting all communities very hard. So I definitely advocate for the city doing more to support local nonprofits and community efforts, and to continue what it's already doing with its own programs.
Another audience question. This is open to the public, so we get diverse views. These are not necessarily Fremont for Everyone endorsed questions, and this is why it's a great debate. We've had a great conversation so far, and been very enlightening. So the one audience question says, our city is doing a lot to provide wraparound services for our unhoused, but there's an element of safety that doesn't always feel like it's being addressed. How will you address community members who are being victimized or perceived as being victimized by this homelessness crisis? And I'm going to start with you, Arif.
It's a very good question. I really appreciate that, whoever asked this question. I work with unsheltered community, for the last 2.5 years, I'm working with them. I go to these encampments, I talk to them, a lot of our volunteers, particularly moms, they come with me, and then we go there and we talk to these people. 99% of that community is safe. We never had any issue, not even single incident. And there are some bad apples always, in normal life also we will see them. The safety is the biggest concern, but yeah, one or two incidents like this should not stop us supporting this community. They need help. And the way we do the help is working together. We invited our police chief and police staff to these shelters. We introduced them to that community, and they have such a good rapport, and they give such a good input to the police chief that how they can help them. So it's all about working together, getting creative to solve these problems. There is no magic wand, there is no way, we can make them disappear in one day. So we have to work together. We have to find ways how we can help this community to get out of this and bring them back on their own feet. And that's what city should be focusing, not on the negative side of this whole homelessness.
Thank you, Jenny.
Yeah, I understand it can be quite scary to see someone walking around who maybe, looks like not someone who you are normally used to interacting with, maybe someone who has mental health challenges, but so many of the challenges that people do have that might lead to making a more feeling of fear in the community is caused by homelessness. Mental health issues are mostly caused by homelessness. Any criminal behavior, a lot of it is kind of just a symptom of being homeless and poor. There's actually a fairly low rate of violent crime. The crimes that people do tend to be arrested for are more things like, shoplifting or, public drunkenness. These are symptoms of homelessness. So we need to solve the root problem, as Arif was saying, and help these people. And we also need to make sure that our city, that our police department is fully staffed, and that we have the members of our city. It's not just about the police department, it is also our MET team, our human services team, to be sure that when there is a dangerous situation happening, that it is addressed quickly. And I was just on a presentation with Chief Washington, and he was saying, don't forget, homelessness itself is not a crime. So if someone is homeless, try to have some compassion. Don't necessarily be afraid, because they may not actually be a threat at all. So have some compassion. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
So many of the people that I know, so many of my friends and acquaintances, they want to help the folks who are homeless. They're not scared and staying away from people who are homeless. So many of them bring them food, carry stuff in their car to give out to them, like I do. I see somebody standing on the side. Well, here's a granola bar and here's some water. And I think that we have to realize there are different types of homeless situations. We have people in their cars who might have gotten sick, lost their job, and their families in the car. Then you've got someone who, I have a sister who has schizophrenia, and when she doesn't take her medicine, she's in a very, very bad way. Luckily, she's remained housed. But when she doesn't take her medicine, it's scary. It really is. Then you have people who maybe have substance abuse problems, and they need help with that. On a bigger picture, another scale, when you said the word victimized, came to mind what children suffer who are homeless when they go to school, and they can be embarrassed because they don't have the clothes or the shoes. But we have some wonderful nonprofits. The mosque over on Old Canyon Road, they provide shoes for the kids so that they don't go to school with old torn up shoes, and that helps them maybe feel like they fit in a little bit. We've got another nonprofit called One Child. We've got the McKinney-Vento program that the school uses to give children backpacks and supplies so that they feel like the other kids, even though they're homeless. So we do have some really good things going on to help them not feel victimized, because they should not.
Very good. The next question, and we have, and I'm going to editorialize a little bit, we have an assembly member who introduced a social housing bill, and if he gets reelected, Alex Lee is likely to reintroduce it again, and it may pick up some traction at the state level. Social housing is basically government subsidized nonprofit housing. But this question from an audience member raises the stigma that's been attached to it in many people's eyes. What are the this question says, what are the candidates' thoughts on improving or approving government projects in Fremont by comparison to the Acorn project in Oakland or Cabrini Green back in Chicago, yet ensuring that they are safer than other projects? So if you have governmental housing, the perception from the 60s and 70s, it's that they're run down and they're they're a hazard to our community. So I'm going to begin with Jenny on this question.
Yeah, as someone who's worked in community economic development my whole life, I've toured many public housing projects, and it is really like a crime the way some of them were designed. There was not a lot of knowledge about design principles to create a sense of community, to create a sense of safety. The good news is there's a lot of knowledge about that now. A lot has been learned from those mistakes. So I really do believe that if we can start to come back to that era of public housing, which unfortunately it was so awful that nothing's really happened for decades, but I definitely support Assemblymember Lee's bill. And I think we can do it right because we have architects and planners that know how to do it in a way. I mean, just look at the affordable housing we have now in Fremont. It works incredibly well. It looks beautiful. There's no problems at all. So I have no fear of public housing, even though there is a horrible history from many decades ago where it was not done right.
Kathy.
Yes, as a little girl, I lived in Chicago, and so I heard stories about Cabrini Green, and yeah, it was not good. And I do think we hopefully have learned over the years and over time. If there are ones being built, I would say we have the conversation with success stories instead of just starting from scratch. You know, collaborate with others, other throughout the United States, and be sure that what we're doing is doing it in the right way, and doing it in a community way, and doing it in a supportive way. So I would definitely be interested in conversations about that and seeing how we could do it successfully and collaboratively.
Arif.
Social housing as an option to increase the affordable housing. But it's not the only way. It's not the only option. So it needs to be among several approaches what we are going to take to solve the affordable housing issues in the Bay Area. There is no single approach. There is no magic bullet for this. Any politician who tells you otherwise is making a, like false compromise, like a next election win kind of statement. Nevertheless, there is much we can do to relieve this strain on the working families in our district. We will work closely with the state lawmakers, county supervisors, other council members, and the community groups. Particularly my most favorite thing is the charity faith-based organizations. To put forward a plan, that serves the purpose of this, solves the solution for us. Working on improving public safety can also available on the side effect for people's fear, right? So whatever the fear factor, what we have is because of this. Thank you.
Very good. Believe it or not, we're wrapping up and we're going to go to our closing 90-second statements. I want to thank all the candidates for participating. I'm going to take this brief moment to advertise the fact that for all of you that have been watching tonight, spread the word. This is a really informative debate. We're going to have one tomorrow night for District 4 with Yang Shao and Bryce Beckles. So please tune in tomorrow at 7 o'clock, a little bit earlier. And we'll be live, and we're going to be uploading this and the other forums on YouTube, and everybody will be able to see it. And so please spread the word. So we're going to have closing statements right now, and I'm going to begin with a 90-second closing from Jenny.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I just want to mention a few more things that I've been fighting for that I think we need to continue to fight for. One is that staff proposed some additional protections for tenants that I think were very reasonable. For example, not being able to discriminate against people for source of income. That did not unfortunately get passed by the city council, but I think we should fight for those sorts of things. Also, I do think we need to not be so quick to approve housing projects that don't bring the needed level of affordability, community benefits, or density in transit rich areas. I have voted against 2 major projects that have come before us, which unfortunately did get adopted, that I think are going to be very bad for the city of Fremont and do not bring the benefits that are needed. Another thing and again, that has to do with what interests are influencing our city council. Another another thing that I did want to mention also is fighting against poverty. I mean, this also affects housing. That's why I fought so hard for minimum wage, and I did not agree when one of our council members said we needed to slow down the adoption of minimum wage. I mean, that makes a big difference in people being able to afford homes. So I just want to say that it's really shocking to live in a country like ours that is so wealthy, and to have a situation where people who do not have money, just because you don't have money, you cannot have a roof over your head. So I hope we can do everything we can to address that issue. Thank you.
Arif.
Thank you again for this opportunity. I am here because I care. I care about the future of our children. I care about the small businesses that creates the jobs in our community. I care about each and every citizen and the services, the quality of services they get from the city of Fremont. I am not a typical politician. I may not have right answers. I may not be using the right words. And I don't have a baggage. The baggage, real baggage, I don't have anything. I'm not loyal to anyone. My platform is public safety, homelessness and affordable housing, fiscal.
I think you're frozen. Let's pause just for a second. Are you back on, Arif?
Can you hear me?
Yes, and so
Okay.
we'll resume the screen. We got a little bit of time. Go ahead.
Okay. So I am not a typical politician.
You still not a
Platform
typical
is public
politician. Okay, go
safety.
ahead. Go ahead. Keep going. You're freezing.
My platform is public safety, homelessness, and affordable housing, fiscal responsibility, and create a program at city level to encourage more youth to participate in city government. It's time to change. Do you want to be part of the change? If you do, join me. Join me to be the force behind this change. Together we can make the difference. Much appreciated the tagline Fremont for everyone. I also appreciated and understood the meaning of the tagline of the League of Women Voters. Democracy is not a spectator game. Your active participation is must for the future of Fremont. Do you agree? For me, Fremont is for everyone, including the unsheltered community. It is not just for the politicians or people with power and strings attached to the city.
Thank you.
Join
Thank
me
you
for
very
a
much.
change.
Thank you very much. Kathy.
Wow. Well, to start out with, I love Fremont. I thrive on building community among my neighbors, community members, city and county officials, and business stakeholders. I am a candidate who will listen to you, converse with you, collaborate with you, and find solutions to help Fremont be the best it can be for current generations and for future generations. I've been endorsed by, well, my track record of work, I think over the past 25 plus years has led to the following list of the highlights of some of my endorsers. The East Bay Times, Congressman Swalwell, Bill Quirk, Assemblyman, 4 of the current and former Alameda County supervisors, building and construction trades, Fremont Fire, Fremont Police Association, Harris Mojadedi, who is the Chabot Las Positas College trustee, Sue Chan, Ohlone College trustee, Eileen McDonald, Alameda County Board trustee, and there are many more. Bottom line, I promise to represent our community with diversity, equity, and inclusion. I thank you for the time tonight, and I also thank you for starting a little bit later so we could watch our police chief and our mayor in their little presentation earlier. Thank you very much for tonight.
Thank you all again, and this concludes this evening's candidate forum for District 3. Please remember to vote on November 8th. And now, because of our sign ordinances, you begin to see a lot more signs pop up, so you'll know there's an election coming up locally. Pay attention, and of course, you have to live in District 3 to vote for one of these candidates, but wherever you live, get out and support your favorite candidate and help. As Arif said, this is not a spectator sport. We all got to participate. So thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening and take care.